Have you ever been in a situation where the only thing that you want to do is stay complaining about God purposes? Today, I want to share with you all a story that I have titled it as Old Faith Must Be Tested. Everything started with huge news, which will bring a tornado full of emotions, especially for my dad. A baby was on the way. This made a lot of people happy. Definitely, I was one of them. I remember how excited I was that I even said to myself, when it is born and big, I will take you for a ride every day. The news ran fast, and everybody already knew that we were waiting for a baby. They passed, and the moment to know the sex of the new member of the family have already come. It was a baby boy who would called as Eric. Something curious about this is that my dad already knew that it was going to be a boy, since he the last night have dreamed that he was going to be the father of a new boy. Finally, the good birthday of my new little brother have turned up, and here was when a bunch of health, personal, and spiritual issues started. December 11, 2014 at 8 p.m. Eric was born. That was the happiest moment of our life. My mom was so excited because she finally could meet his new son. Meanwhile, she was carrying on her arms my new brother. Something strange was happening. The face of Eric it turned purple. He couldn't breathe well. Immediately, doctors, nurses were surrounding my mom. They took away my brother from my mom's arm and they took him to another room where the most serious children needed urgent care. After half waiting for long, my parents received a diagnostic. My new dude had heart murmur, lung infection, and pneumonia, which made him impossible to breathe. What meant that my brother had a high probability of dying. This was the darkest moment of our life. When I received the news that Eddie was terribly sick, I felt how my world was falling down. I started to cry, and the only thing I wanted to do it was run straight to my mom's arms. But unfortunately, she and my father were too far away from me. They passed, and my new brother never got better. Each morning, I woke up with the fear of receiving the news that my baby brother had died. The end of the year arrived, and my brother had had around 20 days fighting for his life. That was the first Christmas without my parents and the first New Year as well. Those days were the worst of my entire life. On the other side, my father was facing many difficulties which proved his faith as an evangelical pastor. During the time that he was in the hospital waiting for my brother to get better, he could experience many situations that made him prove, as I said before, but also increase his faith. Each time that he went to see the progress of healing of Eric, he received bad news. The only thing the doctor said to him was, "Your son will die. Be ready for the funeral." Those words broke my daddy's heart. He always left the room with tears on his eyes. Days were passing, and my dad always prayed to God for a miracle over my brother's life. However, never happened. That never happened. One day, a man who was in the same situation as my father, he got close to my dad to ask him for a prayer for his son. He had realized that my father was an evangelical pastor. My dad said yes, and he prayed, even though he was aware that he had prayed for Eric and nothing had happened. The next day in the morning, my dad was in the hospital waiting to enter to see Eric when suddenly a man really happy appeared. It was the man who my father had prayed for. He gave thanks to my dad because his son had gotten better after my father's prayer, and now they were able to leave the hospital. This made my dad happy, but inside of him there was that feeling that said, why, God? Why always that I pray for my own son, you don't do anything over his life? And now that a strange asks me for praying, he received his miracle. Why? However, he kept on praying, believing that one day Eric was going to be healed. Nevertheless, a lot of people were praying for a miracle over Eric's life, even pastors from other countries. Missing 8 days for finishing the year, Eric started feeling well. He already could breathe a little bit better. However, he couldn't leave the hospital yet. January 5th, my parents received the news that Eric's health was recovered in its totality. Nonetheless, they would have to take Eric to the pediatrician each 3 months in order to be checking his heart to know if it's working normal. Time ran fast. Now Eric is a kid of 8 years old. He's an extrovert kid who always is making messes. But in spite of that, when we see to Eric, we remember how powerful is God. This experience taught us to understand God's purposes, God's times, and God's faithfulness.